Hello, and welcome to our conversation today on B2B tech marketing best practices. My name is David English. I'm president of TSL Marketing, and I've got my colleague Jeffrey Marchesiani here with me as well. He's our SVP of Operations, and today we're going to talk about does B2B buyer intent data lead to poor lead quality? So welcome, everyone. The first thing we wanted to talk about is what is intent data? And here we're really talking about third-party intent data. So this is data that is claimed to indicate that a firm intends or is likely to purchase a solution. There are companies that provide intent data that may look at either search data, prior buying patterns and history, other information like what sort of content are they downloading. We wanted to make the distinction that this is distinct from your own business intelligence. So intelligence that you gathered first party versus purchasing third party intent data. So hopefully that makes sense. And think of it as sometimes companies will say, well, we're going to sell you some data and here's some intent data. Perhaps these are even marketing qualified leads is what they're being positioned as. That also has some level of intent data with it. And so the question really, Jeffrey, is this smoke and mirrors? So I'll let you have first crack at it. Is buying intent data, is it smoke and mirrors?
I think if you buy intent data with the intent of having it be bottom of funnel, I think that can be a challenge, because by and large, the process is to put sort of top of funnel content out there, things that are, the trend reports and the 5 tips. Again, not in isolation, not bad content, but you have to understand that folks that are going to react to that, and that's how these third parties want it to go. And again, this isn't that they're doing it maliciously. It's just they get the highest volume by going further up the funnel. And that almost forces them to have good top of funnel content. So if your system, your people, your process, and your technology is enabled well for top of funnel leads to get worked over time. And again, depending on the sales cycle, we could be talking about we could be talking about years, frankly, or months. So I just be cautious that I think intent data and these third parties, you just have to qualify in your mind. So do I think it's smoke and mirrors? If someone is saying, hey, we're going to get folks that are intending to buy, and these signals are the reason why. Somebody downloading a trend report for 2021 or the next year isn't a signal to buy. That's a signal of potential interest. And I would say that person at best needs to be qualified and then nurtured for a pretty long time. So I think that'll be my immediate answer, David. I'm not sure how you sort of envision that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's almost you've got to really understand what your company does and break it down by segment. So, like, let's take a couple of examples here. If I'm a traditional VAR and I want to find people that may need to upgrade their storage environment, well, is there really any intent data that's going to tell me that better than knowing that my market segments, everybody in the market is going to be updating their storage environment? Now, if there's intent data that says these companies here are growing their storage environment at faster clips, and these companies also happen to be within the target segment that I'm going after, well, then that could be very helpful because you may be able to do, it may be an additional level of business intelligence. There are other times where I think that could be very misleading. For example, if it's a product upgrade sale and the reason someone may buy from you versus another company is based on your skills and ability, and they don't know who you are, you could end up getting on some really bad sales cycles and wasting your time by somebody who may be at best price shopping. I think your point is also a very good one. I would add to that as well, which would be, it depends on how the intent data was captured and over what information is it. And if it's a bunch of people interested in some broad top of funnel topic, it may not indicate any kind of buyer intent at all. It may include some level of interest. But if they don't have the right filters to make sure that all exclusively the contacts you're being given are right fit contacts, we talk a lot about right fit contacts, in my view, being far more important than things like buyer intent in most cases. Because if you end up if you haven't done the good work around segmenting and targeting your persona, you may get a lot of people that on the surface may look like there's some level of interest, but your sales team will have no chance of winning, or very little chance. That they're sort of a low likelihood sales situation. And that's probably where you end up getting that feedback from sales of like, hey, this is really bad lead quality. Like, we don't like the leads. And yet on the surface of it, you're like, this makes sense, but you haven't done the segmentation. And these are really, they really shouldn't be going to sales. These could at best be people that, if they're right fit, can enter into a nurture stream.
And you just spurred another thought in me, and it's sort of where you want to put your money. Because if it's a top of funnel lead, you're going to have to put time and energy and money into that, emails and people and calls. So let's just say you're buying that lead for $500, just to make up a number, or make it $100 easy. So you're buying these intent leads for $100, and let's say you close, or you even put 1 out of 20 into pipeline. I'm not saying close, just into pipeline. So you start to do the math, and you got, okay, so I'm buying these for $100. This feels good. I'm getting good volume.
Yeah.
And then if you actually stood back and said, oh my gosh, but I have all my salespeople, and they're going into nurturing streams, which I paid an agency to build all these emails and this, you add all those costs on, and then you're like, well, 1 out of 20, gets pipelined. Again, I'm not saying close, like that just goes into your pipeline at whatever percentage of your sales process. Like, you're starting to look at serious money where it's like, let's just call it whatever, $3,000. Like, what if you took that same $3,000 and did something more bottom of funnel on your brand? Just even, let's say it's $3,000 of ad spend, just to put that, or you did $3,000 of good solid content and some emailing or whatever it is. Just consider that, because I've used these services, and again, I'm not trying to say they're wrong, but at the end of the day, as you look at those costs, it's really just where do you want to put your money? And again, it gets back to your people, process, and tech. Like, if you have really solid inside sales and they have a great mechanism for marketing automation and CRM and their processes and they're compensated the right way, all these things that normally isn't the case. Usually we have sales team that want sales ready leads. So if you give them one of these leads, like, you're gapped from the chasm of here's what the maturity of this lead is, and this is what they want. So that's even another problem. So you have these costs to sort of bridge that gap to get it to what they want. So I just be careful, because it looks enticing, and names in the database for $100 or $90 or $500, whatever the price is. But just think, I could take all that money and put it towards something else that A, would help my brand, B, would potentially be a closer alignment to my right audience, like David just said, and C, would be more aligned with what my sales team is willing and able to work.
Yeah, and so the question then is there something better than intent data? And for me, the first like 2 parts of this are so fundamental, and conversely, it will actually make it, if you do these first 2 things better, it will probably make you more able to leverage intent data in theory. But if you don't have these 2, I certainly think intent data can really lead you down a poor path. And that's first, is be very clear in your segmentation and understanding the needs of your buyer persona. We talk about this repeatedly, and it always sounds simple, but we have more companies than not that really have not fully segmented who they're targeting. And this is more true for services firms. A lot of the SaaS companies we work with have much better segmentation. Services firms, by definition, can provide services, and it can be applicable across numerous segments, and therefore they often have a difficult time narrowing their focus, and therefore building out their value prop for that. And not just value prop, but building out related content. So be very clear in your segmentation. If you're doing that first, then you can work on building business intelligence on the firms that you target. And the business intelligence is often going to be better than the intent data. So what are their current technologies in place? What sort of challenges do they have? Like, how do they handle certain problems? Like, building up your knowledge of the account. That's really those first couple of steps.
Yeah, and again, good old-fashioned personas, know the human at the other side, what their wants and needs are. And that number 2 is really important as well. It's just sort of the account-based marketing, the ABM sort of catchphrase of today. But it's good old-fashioned, just if you know your audience. Again, we talk about the persona, knowing the sort of the human, but also if you know what's going on with those businesses, think of the value, and this gets to the last point, the content that you could create, or align some good content you have with that. Like, if I know more about them, I know what will be valuable to them more, again, at the human level and at the business level. So that's really where, again, the $3,000 model from a few minutes ago, like, I'd probably take my $3,000 model and build some really great personas, and maybe even try to do some profiling of a short list of businesses to start, so that I can then have great content to really drive at them, so I pique their interest. And again, brand elevation and brand equity, a whole slew of things come from that, versus, hey, I got $100 lead that, get 1 of 20 into my pipeline. So,
Absolutely. The other part of the solution for me is really, that focus on awareness in your audience, and building that awareness through high quality content, thought leadership, and offers. I think a lot of companies, and this to me is not product, it's not product heavy. It's very much high quality content on business challenges, how other people have solved challenges, what other people are doing, how, what challenges should you be aware of, how can they be solved, and that there's plenty of time to feed that into offers, and into a sales conversation. But if they don't know who you are, if they don't have confidence in your ability as a company to solve their problems, you're probably not going to get a chance to really get too deep into the sales cycle in as many cases as you would like. And so building that first, and that awareness, that can be built through advertising. It can be built through very targeted emails. It can be built through rep interactions, sales rep interactions. Both you can still do it via phone call, but also through very customized, very tailored emails, offering something of value, not hard pitching a sales message. And that to me is sort of the part of a really good solution.
And then the last point here with regards to lead quality, and I think it's a more maturity in what your system's ready to take. And again, you can probably call it a quality, or the recipient, your sales team or your inside sales team would probably put a quality score to it. But I think from a marketing standpoint, or even from a business alignment, I think it comes back to that chasm concept of, hey, is it ready? Like, is this what my sales team's ready? Like, are they ready for top of funnel? No, they're not. Okay, are they ready for mid? No, not. Are they tuned and ready? Again, people process and tech for, sales ready leads. Yeah, cool. And again, I'm not saying all sales organizations, of course, they'd love something handed to them, but there are sales organizations that definitely have strong sort of middle funnel capabilities. They can take something and they have, to David's point, they have content and resources and process that allows them to work something and get in there early. Because as one of the points here, the best case scenario of this intent data that you're buying is that it truly would be intent data. Like, imagine if you got an email with 10 leads in it that were all ready to buy. More than likely, they've already decided or narrowed down who they're going to buy from.
That's such a key point, Jeffrey, because it is, and I was just thinking that right before you said it, because it's sort of like a lot of companies, it's like, well, we want people that are buying now. It's like, oh, okay, that's great. We can find people that are buying now. The problem is they don't know who you are. And the only one that's really going to work well for were companies that are either market leaders, where there's already a lot of awareness built up, or at least there are a lot of trust signals they can show, or people who have, I'm going to call it like a top 5% sales process. Like, you're just so good, right? And probably more people think they're in that category than actually are. So let's assume that most everyone is not in that category. Then if you get somebody who's looking to buy now and they don't know who you are and you're not a market leader, like, that's a really tough sales cycle. It doesn't mean you can't win some, but it means that you're in a tough sales situation most of the time. Better would be to get in early and start to build a relationship and build awareness. But oftentimes that means that you may be getting people who are either early in the sales process, who aren't buying right away, who are just starting that part of it. And some of those buyer signals really start to flash later on. Or they may be for people that it's such just general industry content that it doesn't even mean that they're starting on the journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess poor quality and sort of preparedness of the recipient, your sales team, is probably the better question here. And again, it's going to be unique for everyone. That's why I think to say all of it's poor quality, no, it's going to be of a maturity within the marketing funnel, let's say, potentially the sales funnel. And is your systems, again, your people, process, and tech, ready to optimize that?
So I'm going to give a comment, a final thought, and then I want Jeffrey, you to give a final thought, and you can certainly give an extra comment too if you like. My comment is that TSL, we purchase a lot of data, and we do a lot of advertising. So we're pretty agnostic on what data we purchase and where we advertise. We have good relationships with firms in both of those areas that it's based on, those relationships and those companies providing good quality results to our customers. But we're pretty agnostic. I generally have not seen intent data provide ROI in the numerous cases we've piloted it. that's the comment. My final thought would be, I think there is still a place for it, so I wouldn't rule it out. And I'm not going to say it's just bad, full stop. But I think it has to be it has to be done in a very targeted way. So you have to be very clear on your segment, and you have to have ongoing nurturing, high quality nurturing in place for that segment. Make sure that the data you get in, the intent data, is exclusively for the segment you want and not outside of it. So you can't have like broad parameters in it. And in that case, and if you do that, that can be helpful, especially if you understand where they're coming in, and you're not trying to take that and move it right to sales, who expects that that's going to be an SQL that's going to close. If you're going to do it as part of a long-term marketing effort, perhaps. If it's something that you expect these to turn into SQLs right away, my experience has been that it isn't worth the investment.
And my closing comment is, this potentially becomes a scenario where you never learn to fish. So you're always going to the fishmonger to get your fish. And I think, especially now where the industry's going, how consumption of educational information, how trust, being recognized, known, trusted, everything that we've talked, and goes into the psychology of the human making buying decision. Again, this is a B2C or B2B statement, but we'll stay in our B2B realm here. That if you're not learning to fish, in this case, meaning building your brand, having known audiences, your personas, and having a really great message that aligns with them, and having really great content, and then having your sort of channel plan and program to get out there, and that would be the equivalent of sort of learning to fish, you're always going to be dependent on that fishmonger. And if they increase their prices of fish, guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to pay more. If there's a dry run of fish, if they're closed on Sundays, you're not going to get fish. So I think to Dave's point, you can have a balance of this, but I think I'd say put the time, the energy, and those dollars in that scenario into building your brand and your system so that you can fish, so you're not dependent on someone else. Where I think this comes in is if you're fishing really well and you want to supercharge your inflow of fish at that point or something, then this could be added on. But I think a lot of people turn to this as the silver bullet to say, hey, we aren't generating new leads, we don't have enough pipeline, let's go there. And I think that's where it falls down. And to David's point, I've seen this a lot done at scale, micro, and I've never seen it turn out really great, by and large. I'm not saying there weren't some hits in there, but by and large, there were a lot of sort of swings and misses. And I think it's because of that. They were just trying to count on someone else to fish for them. So grab a pole and learn how to fish.
Jeffrey, I think the last minute and a half, if anyone didn't catch Jeffrey's points, I think that's a perfect summary. And so if you need to rewind the last 90 seconds and listen again to what Jeffrey said, I think you're spot on right there. So certainly always feel free to reach out to Jeffrey or myself. Our contact details are below, and we're always happy to help or answer questions or provide feedback. And we'll look forward to you joining us the next time. Thanks.